Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 20. We're back to using, here we go again. We're going episode 20 of the Odd Sports Topics podcast. I am Michael Rachel, joined as always by PJ Ellis and Matt Costa. We've got a great guest today. It's Earl Austin Jr. You can hear him on the radio calling the St. Louis University men's basketball Billikens games. PJ, talk to us a little bit about Earl. You've known him growing up. Give us a little bit of insight into him and what he's done in his career.
Yeah, if you're from St. Louis and you played high school basketball or any sort of youth sports growing up, you probably know the name Earl Austin Jr. Not only does he cover Billikens basketball, which he does so well for the past, I think he said this was his 30th season this year. He was celebrating his 30th year on air with them. He also just covered all sorts of high school sports in St. Louis area. He's just a St. Louis legend. Like, he is in tune with all of the best high school players, whether it be football, basketball, whatever. His Earl time update on Twitter is fantastic, where he goes around to different sporting events in the high school area and gives people, maybe people who don't get as much recognition, gives them interviews and gives him his platform to share these people. Like I said, he's just a legend in St. Louis sports. So if you've been around St. Louis for a while, you probably know the name Earl Austin Jr.
Matt, obviously everyone should go like this video down below, subscribe, YouTube if you're watching on wherever the platforms, wherever you listen to your podcasts, hit that subscribe, rate us, like us, all that. We appreciate it all. Facebook, we'll put it on there as well. So just appreciate it all. Matt, give us a little bit of a sneak peek into this interview with Earl.
Well, if you're a SLU basketball fan, we got a great one coming up for you. There's nobody better to talk SLU basketball with than Earl Austin Jr. He goes real in depth, covering basically the entire season, a little bit on the Billikens break there that they were dealing with COVID after a really hot start. He goes into maybe some sneak previews for next year, talks about some upcoming recruits that he might like from the St. Louis area. If you're a Billiken fan, there's hope. There's lights at the end of the tunnel. Definitely a good one for you. Definitely going to want to hear what Earl Austin says about the Billikens and their future here.
And he's right with, like, SLU basketball's back, everybody. We're back for the future, like for the future to come. It's not as back as, the Kansases of the world of that, but for St. Louis University, we're back to being tournament contenders year in, year out. I mean, the last 3 years we're talking about tournaments, and this year again we're on the bubble. So here we go, real quick before we get into the interview. I got to make my case for SLU, right? So we have this new metric in the NCAA committee. It's called the net rankings. They were going to use it last year, but obviously the selection committee didn't get to do their job since COVID-19 happened. There was no tournament field set. So this year, St. Louis University ranked 45th in the net. This is as of Tuesday morning. Teams that are already in the tournament are below them. Drake on the bubble, 47. Colorado State, 50. Louisville, 51. Xavier, 57. Seton Hall, 58. Duke, 60. They're probably not going to make it. Michigan State, 65. So they've got a lot of teams that are either on the bubble of getting into the tournament or solidified their position into the tournament below SLU on the net rankings. And if we made these net rankings for the committee, put us in. Now, I'm not going to look at the other stuff saying why we shouldn't be in, because we only look at stuff that helps our case. So it's not up for debate. Put SLU in. And even if it's the first four, give me a first four game. I'm fine with playing our way in, but hopefully we schedule a game this week. PJ, give us your favorite part of the interview. Your dad saved someone from having a heart attack, potentially. We're not exactly sure.
Unconfirmed, but.
Well, I want to add to that too. They said not as back as the Kansas of the world. Give me a SLU Kansas game early in the season before COVID hit SLU, and I'm taking SLU in that game. I am taking SLU to beat Kansas early in the season. Kansas was bad. SLU is hot. I'm taking SLU in that game.
If it's at Chaffetz,
Kansas didn't get bad until conference play. Kansas was great before. During, like, after Christmas, we were still pretty good. We had a little break there. And then we hit that 4 out of 5 losses streak in like January, early February. We were pretty good before that. I'm going to take Kansas pretty much every day.
So give me a SLU in that 4 out of 5 losing streak, and SLU takes them there. I'm saying it.
We were lost to Sisters of the Blind during that 4 out of 5 losing streak.
I think if it's at Chaffetz, it's a game. If it's at Kansas, I really don't think there's much of a chance. SLU didn't have that great of a season on the road this year, if you look at it. But at Chaffetz, they're pretty unbeatable. They only lost one. It was to Dayton after COVID. So we'll see. But go ahead, PJ.
Yeah, so favorite part of the interview, we talk about St. Louis high school sports, which obviously, being from St. Louis, I'm a big fan of. He gives us all-time starting 5. I think it's interesting to see the names he has included on that. I think there's a few snubs, but it just goes to say that when St. Louis high school basketball has been this good, there's going to be some snubs. There's only 5 spots, and there's been way more than that of really good players that come through their area. So I think it's interesting when you hear a legend like that, who I don't know if I'd trust anybody more to talk high school basketball, St. Louis high school basketball, than Earl Austin, give his definitive starting 5 of all time. But before we get into it, I want to shout out our socials. Obviously, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, like this video, comment. And then also, too, we're going to put a link in the description to vote for TJ Crockett. He's in a running for the college dunk contest. He's in a bracket right now to see if he makes it in. So we're going to put a link down. He's in the quarterfinals right now, I think. So I think voting ends today when we're recording. So when it's looking like he'll advance. So when he advances to the next round, we're going to put the link in the bio. Make sure you vote for him so he can make it to the college dunk contest.
Jameis Winston, front of the pod. Matt, can you eat a W for us like Jameis did?
Yeah, give me 1 second. That's a dub.
Eat that W, just like Jameis did. All right. Earl Austin Jr., it's a great interview. We thank him once again for coming on. Hope you guys all enjoy it. If you're a fan of St. Louis University basketball, obviously you're going to love this. If you're a fan of just St. Louis basketball in general, you're going to love this. If you're a fan of mid-major talk and bubble talk, you're going to like this as well. So pretty much everything. If you're a college basketball fan, you'll like this. Here is our interview with the color commentator for the St. Louis University men's basketball team, Earl Austin Jr. Enjoy. We now welcome on to the Odd Sports Topics podcast, the current analyst commentator for the St. Louis Billikens men's basketball team on the radio, Earl Austin Jr. Earl, we appreciate you talking to us.
My pleasure, guys. Glad to be here.
So we want to jump in right away to the hot topic of the week with SLU basketball. Obviously, they're on the bubble, not the week we were looking for. But first, I want to talk to you about your personal season. It's a little different for everybody with COVID going on. And you called the A-10 championships from St. Louis. You weren't in Richmond calling the games. That had to have been a little weird for you. So could you just talk to us a little bit about this year for you personally and what it's like to not always be at the games calling them?
Well, it was a different way to spend your 30th year of broadcasting St. Louis U basketball. Obviously, all of our home for the first, I guess, month or so of the season, our home games were played in front of an empty house. It was just basically workers and cardboard fans, and that was about it. And the media people where we were, and then our broadcast location was up top as opposed to on the floor where we normally were. Even though we were playing well, it was kind of depressing because we had a great team. We were playing well, but we had it was a party, but we couldn't share it with anybody. We did the best we can through the radio, and it was kind of hard, But then about the 5th or 6th game, we started seeing some fans come in, some family members, some donors, and then by the end of the home season, it was about close to 10%. So it was close to 1,000 fans. So that made it nice to see just some people in the house. And obviously on the road, since we didn't travel with the team, we kind of set up, had a nice room set up where we watched we had monitors set up. So it's a different feel when you're watching it on TV or on a monitor and calling the game because, you're not getting that live feel, but you kind of adapt to it and keep it moving. In past years, we've had, me and Rammer, we've had to adjust to some different situations. I know we didn't get reception one year. I guess we were in a tournament in Hawaii and things went afoul. So we got on like a cell phone. We were just passing the phone between each other. So, when you've done it so long, you kind of experience a little bit of everything. But this was something like we've never seen before, obviously. And we were just kind of, at least we were happy to do a game. Last year at this time, we were all in New York getting ready to play in the tournament, and the kids were in practice. And then Travis had to tell the kids, that if they've shut the tournament down, they shut everything down. And those to see the just looks of disappointment on their faces was something to see.
So obviously not the way we saw the season going after a 7-1 start, which included a win against LSU. COVID hit the Billikens pretty hard. They were forced to take a 33-day break for a little bit there. What are your thoughts on this team and how they played after, their last regular season game?
It was hard because we were playing good basketball. You say 7-1. Our only loss was to a good Minnesota team on the road. We were averaging 83, 84 points a game, shooting the three well, shooting free throws well, two things that we normally don't associate with recent Billiken teams. and beating a good LSU team in a very entertaining game, beating North Carolina State, and then all of a sudden you're shut down. But not only shut, usually some of the shutdowns are a week or two, but 34 days that's just a lot not to be able to do anything. And then you come and you lose to Dayton, and then we're getting ready to play, and then you get shut down, and then you don't get to play Richmond. Things happen. So by the time we played LaSalle, it was like our second game in 42 days. So it was we lost that game, and then we had on a nice little streak. So it was up and down. We could never gain the offensive continuity that we had before. I think we battled through, had a nice little 4-game winning streak going into the conference tournament. Played well against UMass, but just didn't have the juice in the semifinal game against the number 1 seed, St. Bonaventure. So it was disappointing not to be able. We lost 8 games, and then we lost our first. And then right at the beginning of the conference seasons when we were shut down. So that made it hard to adjust to. And I think the guys did the best they can under the circumstances.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually thought it was a pretty decent, good year given the circumstances that they had to go through. And you're looking where we are right now, they've still got a chance to make this NCAA field, depending on what bracketologist you're looking at. There's speculation on a game being added. Have you heard anything about who this could possibly be? Could it be, a team that loses from the Mountain West, such as Boise State, or if Memphis were to drop one in the American, or maybe even if Loyola wants to improve their seed? Have you heard anything about possibly adding a game this week?
Haven't heard who they were talking about, but those are the kind of scenarios that have been thrown around. You've thrown out some teams, like I say, teams from conferences that were you kind of have to fit both teams. Both teams looking to maybe add a good resume win before Selection Sunday, so it have to make sense for both teams. And you talked about a couple of teams. I've heard Drake as well, but I think Drake is their one. I think they've played their allotment of games. Like the Valley's probably, I think they said the Valley was the only league that played their whole league schedule.
Yeah.
But like you said, you threw out Boise State and Memphis, who was originally on our schedule.
Right.
And that was thrown out, And another thing too, even not only for NCAA, but if we get our NIT bid, the NIT starts like a couple of days after Selection Sunday. So you're talking like almost 2 weeks after our St. Bonaventure game to potential first round NIT game. So maybe just to get a game in between may make sense. So there's still speculation, but nothing definite.
Bro, we got some good news. We learned is Perkins going to return for another season next year. Do you think there's any chance that we see Goodwin or French join him and taking another season next year and kind of running this back and giving another chance next year?
Well, it's open to them. They made their announcement that this would be their final year of college basketball at St. Louis University, but you never know, and it's available to them. Javante obviously made it official that he was coming back, and I think that was big for him and us. Obviously, helps our chances, but I think it helps Javante too in terms of him being able to get a little bit stronger physically, because they really got physical with Javante once the league season started, and I think just get a little bigger, stronger to help that, and then he makes him even more formidable offensive weapon. And as far as Jay Good and Haas, so we'll just have to wait and see what they do. Maybe what happened in Richmond might help their decision along, but we'll see. Obviously, if they come back, I'm all for it, but I wish you luck either way in which I would try to choose.
So I recently saw a clip of a discussion between Mizzou head coach Quanzo Martin and SLU head coach Travis Ford, where they talked about possibly renewing the Mizzou-SLU basketball rivalry. I just wanted to get your thoughts on maybe a possible game coming up between arguably the two most popular college basketball programs in the St. Louis area. What would that mean to the area and to these two programs?
Oh, it'd be fun. Obviously, the only time they played in the recent memory was 20 years ago. They had that 3-game series with Quinn Snyder and Lorenzo Romar were the coaches, respectively. Spoon and Norm had just left the scene after great careers. And it was fun. The first game was at the Dome, and we won by 3. It was an amazing game. And then we went to Columbia, and Mizzou pulled it out late. And then the third game was at back then the Kiel Center, and Wesley Stokes had won at the buzzer to beat us. So it was 3 exciting games. And I'm always a component of in-state teams playing each other. It's great basketball. It's great intrigue for the fans in the state, bragging rights and all that stuff. And not only SLU and Mizzou, but I think Missouri State. SEMO, Kansas City, the 5 teams. I just like to see everybody play, and even for us, it also extends to SLU Carbondale, who we play every year. So yeah, I know they talk all the time, because I know Brooks walked on for Conzo, Travis's son, at Mizzou. So and they have their relationship through that. Then if it doesn't happen, I don't really lose a lot of sleep over it, because both teams have a lot on their plate in terms of tough conferences. They play good non-conference competition, but if the game comes to pass, once again, I'll enjoy it like I did the other 3 we played.
Earl, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Both SLU and Mizzou probably had some of their better basketball teams they've had in most recent memory. Who wins that game this year? If it was scheduled this year and they did play, who wins between Mizzou and SLU this year?
The Billikens, of course.
By 20, PJ.
I'll rock with my guys. Now, if you ask Mike Kelly, you might get a different answer.
Had to try. Had to see. I just had to put you on the spot and see what you'd say. Earl, we've seen a lot of success recently with SLU going after local kids. St. Louis high school basketball is obviously, I would put it up there with anywhere around the country. Is there any high schoolers right now in the local area you'd like to see continue that trend of going to SLU and making that impact and really helping that program out?
Absolutely, all of them. I mean, that's the beauty of what we've done the last couple of years. I think Jordan Goodwin really started the ball rolling again when he was Travis's first commitment. And then Cartier Gordon followed. He lasted, a half semester, but he was productive. And then came Yuri Collins, TJ Hargrove, and then Javante Perkins via the junior college. So, we've seen local guys drive this bus the last couple of years, and there's a lot of good talent coming through. Once again, you see in Terrace Reed Jr. out of Chaminade. He just picked up an offer from Illinois. He's got all the big time programs coming after him. That junior class has so many talented wing players. Good Lord, Kellen Baines out of Kelly's son out of Pattonville, Nick Kramer out of U High, Ahmad Scarborough from St. Louis Christian Academy, the kid Mayo from Chaminade, who hit the big shot, the 3-pointer at the buzzer. I mean, Rob Martin, the point guard. Good Lord, it's go Larry Hughes Jr. Of course, his dad's a legend at St. Louis University and CVC. And then there's a couple names I'm still forgetting, but they're just very, very. And I hope we grab 1 or 2, and just keep it going, because these kids can play, and they put their mark. The fact, I think probably the St. Louis basketball community, maybe it's one of its finest hours of Sunday night, the All-Star game, to see 2 kids, not only from the same city, but the same high school, starting in the NBA All-Star game, with Bradley and Jason. I mean, that's just not only for Chaminade, but for St. Louis basketball, where they're talking about New York, Chicago, LA, all these cities, but here's 2 kids from Lou starting on Team Durant. That was, I hope people from St. Louis appreciate what kind of moment that was for our community.
Earl, we had Larry on the podcast, and we asked him the question: how close was Jason to choosing SLU? Obviously, we knew when he was going through that whole process, SLU and Duke were up there as probably his final 2. What would that have meant for SLU's program had Jason to chose to go that route and chose to stay at home and be at SLU and maybe take them to the tournament and do whatever? What would that have meant to the program had Jason decided to go to SLU?
It would have been the same impact as Larry when he decided to go to SLU in 1997. A McDonald's All-American, stays home, and then Larry took us to the tournament, was the National Freshman of the Year, and became a lottery pick after 1 year. So that would have been that kind of impact. And I think in terms of not only that, but in terms of future recruiting, here's a McDonald's All-American going to your program, and at that time you had Tyler Cook, Xavier Sneed, just all kind of Jordan Barnes. You had all kind of great players. Playing with Jason or coming right behind them. So probably the ripple effect would have been nice. Those are hard ones to get, though. Obviously, when you got the blue covered after you, those are hard ones to get. Jason's done quite well for himself, but yeah, anytime SLU or Missouri is able to get someone like that to stay home, it's only a good thing.
And Earl, you're right with Jordan Goodwin and other players, really reestablishing St. Louis University as the home for the St. Louis kids. And I think we also have to point out Travis Ford. He's been getting some ridiculous hate in this ridiculous season that's just so difficult to coach in itself. But also there's the whole recruiting aspect and what he's been able to do for St. Louis University to where they were just, 6 years ago towards the bottom of the A10. Now they made a tournament already. They're competing for tournaments, projected top 3 almost every year in the A10. What he's been able to do recruiting just along with coaching. Can you speak a little bit on Travis Ford a little bit?
Yeah, Travis has reestablished St. Louis U as a force to be reckoned with in the Atlantic 10. As you said, during the Rick Majerus era, Rick got us to a point where we were nationally ranked, nationally respected, and really, and then he did it Rick's way, and then we took a dip there. And Jim did a great job of, he was the steward of when Rick retired and passed on. And then we had a dip there for a 4 or 5 year period. But then Travis came in, and like I said, we've won 23 games 2 years ago, won a conference championship, hung a banner, went to the NCAA. Last year we won 23 games. We were in position to maybe repeat as conference tournament champions. We were going to go to postseason, whether it was the NCAA or NIT, and that's after losing a great senior class with Javon Bess and that crew. You lose that crew. That's usually our history is you take a dip. Well, we came right back, led by Jordan and Haas, and won 23 games again. This year, we were on track. With a full season, we win more than 20 games. We're going to play more postseason basketball as well. And that's what you want. You want to establish consistency of winning. Over our history, we've had that class. We go to we make a couple tournaments, then that class graduates, and then we take a dip for a few years. But I think Travis has finally got that thing going where it's a program now. Like you lose Haas and Jordan Goodwin, two of the best players we've ever had in our program. Normally you would take a dip, but instead now you got Javante, you got Yuri, you got Martin Linson, you got, you just got Gibson Jimerson. You got a whole group of guys right there. Fred Thatch Jr. right behind James Bell. So that's what a program does. You lose guys, but then you got guys already in place to keep that thing going. And I think that's what Travis has been able to establish through consistent recruiting. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Earl, I've got one more SLU question for you. Obviously, there's nobody better to talk SLU basketball than Earl Austin Jr. So we're going to ask a lot of questions, but we'll get into your career a little bit as well. But before I get to that last question about SLU, I forgot to bring this up to Larry Hughes, and I was kind of bothered I didn't. I'd love to see SLU have a team in the TBT tournament where the alum play. We see like Marquette, Ohio State have those. And I think Larry Hughes coaching a TBT team made of like Javon Bess and all of those guys would be super fun for us fans to watch in the summertime. But we'll see if that ever happens. My last question for you. You brought it up.
We did have one.
Did we?
First year we had one. The Sons of Majerus, that's what the team was called. And that was Jordan Jett, Mike McCall, Brian Conklin, Dwayne Evans, and that crew, Cody Ellis, that crew actually played in the first one. I think they actually won a game and lost us in the second round of that tournament. But you're right. I would love to see it continued as well. Because I think Javon played in it last year.
Yeah.
He played for, but they actually got to the semifinals.
Yeah.
I'd always love to see a group of former Billikens like that. I think we'd be very representative too as well.
Yeah, it'd be a good squad. It'd be fun to watch them. You brought it up how usually there's a dip in the next season once a bunch of seniors graduate. So I'm going to ask you, who do you think makes the biggest impact for SLU next year that didn't get significant time this year?
Wow, it's interesting because we played Travis. We had so much depth and we played so many people, and people were able to kind of at some moment really make an impact. Like Fred Thatch lately has really come on strong coming off the bench. You've seen TJ Hargrove have his moments where he hit a couple threes, throw a dunk down, and make energy plays. I think before he was injured, Demarius was playing tremendous basketball. He had LSU game early on. He was shooting a high clip from three, making energy plays. Then he hurt his ankle at the end of that St. Bonaventure game and has kind of struggled since then. I don't think he's recovered from that. So, Martin Linson's only playing 12 minutes a game, but he's giving you big production. in those 12 to 13 minutes that you see. So those guys, if with they project with more minutes, it's you definitely see their production. One person who you've seen glimpses of this year, and has a bright future is Markai Strickland. He's a phenomenal athlete, and I think he's learned a lot in this freshman year. But he's giving you just some highlight reel dunks. He plays with a lot of energy, and I think much like TJ, you're gonna see his skill level continue to improve. So there's a lot of people who have got a chance to really, really step out. And I think Bill Jr. I think if he's healthy, you saw what he was like at the end of his freshman year last year. So there's a lot of candidates who can do that.
Earl, we're going to get into your career a little bit more here outside of SLU. One of my favorite things you do, by the way, anybody listening, if you're not following Earl Austin on Twitter, go follow him. One of my favorite things you do on Twitter is your Earl Time updates, where you'll give little updates about high school sports, whatever events you're at, giving score updates and kind of just a recap of that night. It's one of my favorite things you do. How did you create that? Why did you start that? And have you expected it to be this successful as it's been?
I didn't really expect it to be that as successful. It was help created by my nephew, Robin Thompson, who's a basketball player himself at not CDS, played at Missouri State in Maryville, but was a marketing major, and he was the one that kind of talked to me about Uncle Earl. I'm an old curmudgeon sports writer of 35 years, and he was telling me about. He actually helped come up with the name too. But Uncle Earl, you need to kind of get into the social media and the digital stuff there. That's what the kids like to see. And I said, I thought about it for a little bit, but yeah, it kind of helped me do this thing. That's all new to me. I'm a dinosaur. So we came up with that, and it was fun because what it did is not only, obviously people know me for following basketball and football to a certain extent, but I got a chance to go out and see field hockey, girls fight volleyball, baseball, softball, and cover all the different sports and interview and give those kids exposure through social media. And it's funny because tennis, and you interview them after these events and everything, you can see how they're glowing and excited, and people are come up to, oh God, I'm glad you came. These kids, nobody's ever interviewed these kids before, in terms of just on video. You see me, and obviously do newspaper, you do stories on them and stuff like that, but it was refreshing to me too as well, because it was something new. And sometimes you may go in a little rut because you're doing the things that are routine. So this was something new. I'll go to a game and I'll actually call baseball and softball games, do play-by-play for those games, or even water polo. And I've done the swim, state swimming and diving meet a couple of times, and I have a blast doing those because it's something new for me too as well.
Earl, can you tell us a little bit about the St. Louis American? We know you've been a sports editor there since '95, but some people might not be familiar with the publication. Could you just tell us a little bit about what you do there and what the publication is and what they do?
Sure. It's been around over 90 years now. It's the number one Black newspaper in America. It's won several national awards for weekly newspapers, for statewide and national newspaper. I've been there. I've been blessed to be there, like you said, since 1995. It's a weekly, it's free, and we have a great staff of people. We do, news, we do entertainment, we do all, just about everything that, just regular daily newspapers. We're now online, have an online presence as well through our Facebook and Twitter and all of that. And I'll do video vignettes. I forgot what I call that. It's been a while since I've done them. I'll do little 4 or 5 minute presentations on video. It's a tremendous place to work, and it's been a great service to our community as well. I followed it when I was in high school. I used to read guys like Morris Henderson, the late great Morris Henderson, the late Onion Horton, Kevin Boone, and those are guys I followed through the American when I was in school. So I was really proud when I got to be hired there 25 years ago.
Awesome. Earl, I've been putting you on the spot a lot today, so I'm going to do it one more time to you. Last year, we saw STL Today did their all-decade team for the St. Louis area. I'm going to take it a step forward. I want you to give me your high school basketball all-time starting 5 in St. Louis history.
Oh, I guess since I started covering basketball, or since I moved here in 1980, which covers 40 years, I would go with I'd go obviously Jason Tatum, Bradley Beal, Larry Hughes, LaFonso Ellis, and probably Darius Miles. Although that would probably now if you go all time, it probably changes a little bit. You know, you probably go JoJo White obviously goes in that mix from 1960s. Steve Stepanovich from the SMET from the late 1970s goes in that mix, and then I think Larry and Jason and Brad. You know, it makes it tough when you start going all the way back. And maybe Larry. I mean, there's just so many great players through the. You know, LaFonso was a two-time state champion, so that group there would probably go on the all-time. Go way back, obviously. Easy Ed from the '40s, and Bob Curlin from Jennings, probably one of the first big men, 7-footers. Go in that mix as well. Well, I think one thing I'm probably coming up with, maybe the not too distant future, is probably like my own like top 100 players. You know, I've done a few books. I haven't done one lately. A top 100 players of St. Louis history. I might be in the offing down the road.
That would be awesome. One player I want to bring up, you didn't include him on your top five. So just want to see the 6-man, maybe David Lee. Would he sneak in maybe your 6, David 7, 8 spot? Yeah.
Yeah, he'd definitely be in the rotation. There's no doubt about it. The all-star champion, 20 and 10 guy throughout his career. You know, he was something else as Chaminade. Like I said, it gets crowded. It gets crowded when you're talking five. Like I said, people used to be like, you know, Darius Miles. I don't know if people realize. See Darius Miles in high school was phenomenal. People don't realize he's the first guy that from St. Louis that went from high school straight to the draft. It was a number 3 pick. He was terrific. Lauren Woods out of Partner Ritter, probably the best shot blocker we've ever seen. Was a McDonald's All-American, 7-1 player. It's fantastic.
So we know you have a series of books that are called You Might Need a Jacket, Hilarious Stories of Wacky Sports Parents. So from that, we can gather that you're no stranger to odd moments in sports. And here at Odd Sports Topics, we love the odd things in sports. We're all about it. What are some of the oddest things that you have encountered while covering basketball?
Oh, you hear everything. I'll tell you one of the stories in my book, and it was told to me from PJ's father, Paul. I think it was when he was coaching at UMSL, and they were playing, I think, Northwest Missouri State, and there was, one of their star player was Chris Pills, who now the coach at Waynesville High School. And I think he had gotten into it with one of the Missouri Northwest players. I think Gerald Harris was a great player from St. Louis. And they were, I guess, they got put out of the game. But then Chris's father, Gerald, died recently, went after the Northwest players. Gerald was something. He was fired up and went after it. Actually, it was Paul, BJ's dad, that had to take Gerald, kind of come down and hold Gerald back from trying to fight Northwest Missouri's team. And then everything seemed to be called back. And then all of a sudden, they came back and they take him outside, and everybody came back and told the coaches, Coach Russell and Paul, that father, he's having a heart attack out there, you know, and looked like he had gotten so excited and worked up. He had like a mild heart attack. I guess he was okay after that, but that's how worked up things got in that particular situation. I guess a couple of stories. My funniest one is a good friend of mine had a daughter who was a really good player at Pattonville High School and then Webster Groves, and his wife wanted to make bobblehead dolls of the daughter, and he didn't want to do it. He said no, and then he said a couple of weeks later, UPS shows up with a big box, and he opens it up, and it's like 50 bobblehead dolls of the young lady he made. It cost like $1,000, and he's just like, what the, you know? And I told him, yeah, you said no, you know, that's what's going to happen. So, and I got a couple, he gave me a bobblehead doll of the young lady. I still have it somewhere in my thing. So there's some funny ones. And then obviously people get worked up. And this was, you know, it was like 2 years, two different books about 200 different stories, and this was like, oh my God, 10 years before LeVar Ball showed up, which took Great Jack to a whole nother level of a whole nother. He became a legend, you know. But yeah, I think the book was just basically the title. Straight Jacket Parent came from my friend, the late, he just personally seen by Lou Patsu, who was a giant in youth sports in St. Louis for decades. And we used to go to games, and then we go to a spot and dinner after Friday night. We meet all the time, a bunch of us, and then we start talking about the games. Then we start talking about the behavior of parents. And then Lou came up, yeah, these are straight jacket parents. So he actually came up with the name, and he said, "Oh, you need to write a book about this. You got so many different stories." I said, "Well, you're probably right." And then after a while, after the stories continued to accumulate, that's when I decided to write books. Obviously, basketball, but it happens in so many different sports. It's amazing what parents will do to help enhance the athletic lives of their kids. Some are funny, some are real serious, but most are kind of lighthearted.
Earl, we had on Lance Randall the podcast a month or two ago, and we asked him what's one rule he'd like to see changed in basketball. He had some good ones. He would like to see. He said he wants to see the court maybe extended behind the hoop. He said that would be just an interesting play, being able to go behind the hoop. We asked TJ Crockett the same question. He didn't really have we had TJ Crockett on, and we asked him the same question. He didn't really have a answer. He's like, I like the way basketball is right now. So I'm going to ask you, what is one rule or format change you would like to see come to basketball?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I don't know. There's always talk about extending the court, you know, because these athletes are so much bigger. Here's one that I'll ask you to maybe. Do you make that these kids are shooting with such range now? Do you bring a 4-point shot into the mix or something? Like Steph and Dame are pulling up from near half court now. I mean, does that get an extra point, or is that still a 3-point shot? Because that I don't know, that's amazing. What you see high school kids doing that now. They take one dribble inside and they're shooting jump. It's like a regular jumper. You know, a regular 3-point shot's now like a free throw to a lot of these people. So maybe that maybe in a league, startup league or something that's trying to, like the ABA used to do, you know, just something different like that. One thing I would like, it's not exactly a rule. I would say that I would like people to just leave. You know, this is one of my favorite. Leave the mid-range jumper alone. Stop telling kids not to shoot it. That's ridiculous to me. You know, it's still. I embrace the new basketball. I love it. I love people pulling up from 30, but quit trying to be gatekeepers and telling kids that's not a good shot. It's a good shot, you know. When people say that's not, you know, and when you see Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, who are all champions, you know, even Jason Tatum, all these guys, these are the stars of the game. They didn't get that memo. So when they decided it's not a good shot, Chris Paul, still a Hall of Famer playing at a high level, who could shoot the 15-footer, even in this game age. When they decide that it's not a good shot, then I'll back off the mid-range jump shot. But I keep telling people, stop telling kids and people that that's not a good shot. When you see the best players in the world, still a big part of what they do and how they get buckets. Bradley Beal went from a shooter, you know, from Chaminade to Florida. Now he's the top scorer in the NBA because he added a mid-range, he attacks. He's a 3-level scorer now. Now he's unstoppable, as opposed to when we used to see him at Chaminade, he was a 3-point shooter. Now he's 35 a night, and that's just not shooting 3-pointers. That's doing it from everywhere on the court. So that's my little soapbox. Not really a rule, but that's my tidbit for today.
I think you have Drew Hanlon on your side on that one too. I think Drew's also teaching these guys the mid-range jumper. So I think you got an ally in your mission to keep the mid-range jumper alive. And like you said, when the game's on the line, you'll see these superstars go to that mid-range jumper. Kawhi does it all the time. That's the shot he hit against the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. It took him, or no, the Sixers. He's in Game 7. He hit it against the Sixers, that little fall away mid-range jumper. So they still have it in their arsenal. So they go to it when they need it. So I'm with you on that. Let's keep the mid-range jumper in basketball.
Buckets are buckets. I mean, you don't tell. I mean, there are different spots to collect money. There's money everywhere. You don't tell a kid, no, don't get that money. No, you get. There's five. There's when you can collect money from 5 or 6 spots on the floor. I think it's better than say just 3 spots on the floor. I think there's more when everybody collects all the money. The guy that can do it from 5 spots, he's going to have a bigger pile than the guy that can just collect from 3 spots on the floor. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, shoot your 30-footer, but don't wag your finger. That's like back in when I was coming up. They used to tell guys that were 6'8", 6'9" not to dribble. And just let the guards do it. You go inside. Just imagine if Magic Johnson's high school coach told Magic at 6'9", no, don't dribble, Irvin. Go inside where all the other big guys, where the game would be today, But Magic Johnson broke the mold, and now you see guys, 7-footers, playing point guard and handling the basketball and doing all these wonderful things with the ball. So, I think never put limits on what kids, especially young people, can do. If they want to do that, let them do it.
Buckets are buckets. Put that on a t-shirt. That's a great slogan.
Yeah.
Buckets are buckets. Earl, our last question for you. Obviously, one of the most famous color analysts in the St. Louis area when it comes to announcing. What play-by-play commentator would you give your whole career? I don't know how to pronounce it. What play-by-play commentator would you love to call a game with?
I already work with the best. That's Bob Rand.
I knew he was going to say that.
I mean, Bob, you've been together for 30 years, and it's been a blessing. We just have fun now. It's just fun, exciting. We're Billiken homers. We enjoy each other on the road, on the court, off the court, on the road, and everything. And he's just been fantastic to work for. He's just a friend, not only a broadcast partner, but a friend who I love and cherish our friendship through all these decades.
Well, Earl, you are a St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame member, NBCA Hall of Fame, Lindenwood University Hall of Fame, St. Louis University Hall of Fame, and now Odd Sports Topics Hall of Fame guest, Earl Austin Jr. We hope to hear you calling a game this week, and if not, hopefully in the NCAA tournament next week or the NIT at the very least. We appreciate your time, Earl, and go Billikens.
Well, thank you, guys. I really enjoyed it. Continued success to you. I had a lot of fun this morning. This is good.
Big thanks to Earl Austin Jr. for coming on the Odd Sports Topics podcast to talk all things Billikens basketball, all things college basketball, all things St. Louis area basketball, and just all basketball, really. And water polo, brought up water polo. So thanks to Earl Austin Jr. It was a great talk for having him on. And as Matt said in the intro, go follow him at Earl Austin Jr. on Twitter for a great follow. You won't miss a thing. So we appreciate you all. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great week, everyone. Go Billikens. Hopefully we're dancing at this time next week. Have a good one.